Fox Business Alert, as we just told you, the Senate's 9th vote to end the government shutdown has failed. This, as a federal judge in San Francisco says the Trump administration has to stop firing workers and laying them off during the government shutdown, saying the layoffs and firings appear politically motivated. Joining me now, fresh off the Senate floor, Indiana Senator Todd Young. Senator, let's just get to the breaking news here. The judge called the job cuts that appear to be targeted thoughtless. Are they? And what is really going on from where you stand?
No, what's really going on is the Democrats continue to obstruct efforts to keep government running, their most fundamental responsibility. People didn't send us here to shut the government down. They set us down to be constructive. And when they're in the minority, to work with the majority party to find some common ground. And they would rather hold hostage the American people. And sometimes that has included creating some collateral damage, as they regard it, with funding essential services of government, including defense.
Well, let's speak about defense and certainly military, because that has been a very worrisome point of contention. You can't not pay our military members. And President Trump and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has said that the military will receive their paychecks today. You served in the Marines. You have been through this twice. When you were serving in the Marines, 2 different government shutdowns. Tell me what that was like. You did get your paychecks, as I understand it, but I'm sure you feel for others who are not getting their paychecks.
Well, I have to tell you, I was an officer in the military, and I was most concerned about my troops. You find your lance corporals, your sergeants. Many of them have spouses. They have young children, and they're not paid very much to put their lives on the line on behalf of us and our freedoms. And so these are the sorts of circumstances we're now dealing with. I'm glad Secretary Bessent understands the implications, but we should provide certainty to these families, certainty to these, in many cases, war heroes coming off of some long conflicts, and make sure that we fund government so that there's predictability in the lives of these troops.
The Pentagon was able to identify roughly $8 billion in pre-existing research and development money that had not been used to make sure that the military members could get paid. This is a mid-month paycheck. The next one, October 31st, is $8 billion going to last?
No, it certainly is not. $8 billion is a lot of money in the Young household and certainly to every American. But, you know, in Pentagon terms, it's basically finding coins under the seat cushion. So this will not last a long time, which is why it's really important that Democrats wise up. They have put themselves in a political box canyon. They don't know how to get out. And there's basically only one viable course right now, and that's to open all of government back up. And if they have any principled objections on policy grounds, which is where we tend to find some common ground from time to time, then we'll negotiate with them, remembering that we are in the majority, that the American people chose Republican ideas over Democratic ideas last election.
Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, told Fox Business that the economy is starting to show a few maybe hairstick fractures from this. It's a big piece in, forgive me, the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, about Virginia as a state, not your state, but that Virginia is highly susceptible to exactly what you talked about. I would imagine Indiana is too, because of the heavy population of military members. And as you said, their spouses who are going to food banks at this point and trying to just keep their families afloat here. What are you seeing in Indiana?
Well, that's right. My state is among those states with the highest rates of enlistment in the country. We are a serving state, and we're willing to do it for not a lot of money. But these troops do need to be paid. They sign up knowing that their families are going to be taken care of when they spend long deployments overseas. Many of them are overseas or on Navy vessels right now. And the last thing that they or their spouses or children should be thinking about is whether or not that next paycheck paycheck is going to come, whether or not they're going to be able to pay the rent. Some of these troops have made investments, and they're trying to pay a mortgage. We owe them better government service than this. And I don't care whether you're a Republican or Democrat, but the point is, right now, this is a manufactured crisis courtesy of the Democrat members of the U.S. Senate. And I would just plead with them. We've had a few of them do the right thing and vote to fund government in these last 9 attempts. Now we need others to change their vote and join us Republicans.
Listen, I'm not disagreeing, but I hear what a lot of constituents say, whether it's in New York or California or anywhere in between, and that is both sides are to blame. The Republicans are in charge, but we know how government works, and the Democrats are not playing along, at least for a continuing resolution that would have lasted just a couple of weeks. However, President Trump is saying on Truth Social, I am using my authority as commander-in-chief to direct our Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, to use all available funds. That he's doing, but he has also directed his people to basically hit programs that are specifically Democratic district type of programs. However, some of them actually benefit purple states with a lot of Republican voters in them as well. Is that really a fair thing to do?
Listen, the president doesn't have many good options here. Some may think, as the Democrats in the Senate are telling people, that, hey, listen, Republicans control all the branches of government here in Washington, but that obscures the fact that it still takes 60 votes in the United States Senate to end debate and to vote on funding government through our normal appropriations bills. And we're not going to get 60 votes because the Democrats aren't playing along. So we need their help. We need their help to open government back up. In the meantime, the president is he doesn't have many options, and so I'm sympathetic to him trying to find ways out of this mess as soon as absolutely possible. He wants to fund the government. He wants all of these programs funded, and frankly, he wants what I want. He wants to stop operating off of a Biden budget, which is what we've been doing under a continuing resolution, and instead to fund our bipartisan appropriations bills and fund something under a Trump budget, which makes more sense.
The Democrats would say they are holding out for the health care of many in this country. But again, it's surprising that the pain point, that they haven't heard about the pain point yet that could very well hurt their chances for re-election. We'll be watching all of it. Senator Todd Young, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Liz.